there is a couple of pages on here, there's some numbers which seem fairly compelling. The mix of townhouses, 234, versus multi-unit development, 874. Let me just jump over to a graphic to show you this is a cross section showing, this is essentially at the Nullarbor Avenue and Flemington Road intersection, and this is other significant intersections. So 4 to 6 stories, 3 to 4 stories in other intersections, and is that the right one? And there's a smaller sections, 3-story townhouse type things, the likes of what's being built at the top end of Flemington Road at the moment. So, looking at these numbers, it sort of seemed like, well, gee, that doesn't look like we're on the right track here. It reads like a townhouse tunnel, and a plan which I'll show you in a minute certainly looks like a townhouse tunnel, but these numbers don't. So I actually sat down with a scale rule and measured it all out. These are my words inserted in here, it's not part of the plan. The total built form frontages on Flemington Road, townhouses 64% of the built form frontage, and 36% of the apartments or commercial development. To add the other factors in, townhouses of the total frontage, 37%, apartments and commercial 21%, roads, as in intersections and the like, 17%, and open space 25%, which includes a very large area of the grasslands. Let me just rip on to a page where I can show that to the grasslands. Concept plan drawings. Alright, I just can't see that plan there at the moment, but doesn't look. Those diagrams aren't in this particular copy of the document. But our concerns were, I think, from that calculation, realised that it was more of the same sort of thing, and certainly a long way different from the Northbourne Avenue type of approach. Think Northbourne Avenue at a lower height, but with that larger development with larger space between, broken up. Certainly none of what it was talking about with the continuous unbroken form, which concerns us considerably. That was raised fairly clearly when ACFLA presented to our meeting in October, I think it was. And then we got replies saying, GCC didn't put in the submission. Came to our meeting and we gave feedback and we weren't asked for any written form submission. So we had discussions with the Minister and Andrew agreed to revisit it. So now we're trying to determine in what exact form Flemington Road concept plan has been sent off to LDA for rollout. So with that summary in mind, I'll hand over to you for an update on where we're at, and feel free to draw on the ACFLA and LDA reps.
Thanks, Alan. Good evening, everyone. My brief, I understand, aside from being brief, certainly is to touch on the Flemington Road issue, but also just provide some updates on a couple of other relatively important issues that we've discussed with the council before. In a minute, I will throw to Peter and Eve to talk a little bit more around the detail, but to talk in the broadest terms, what I think there appears to be a fairly strong community consensus around the Flemington Road corridor, the desire to see an increased density in order to make public transport viable. I think at that sort of top level that there is agreement. Of course, the devil is always in the detail of these sorts of proposals. But And people want to have a good sense of exactly what the LDA is proposing in terms of actually implementing that top-level principle. So following a number of discussions with Alan and other community council representatives back and forth over a number of months discussing a range of ideas, I think we're at the point where we can certainly, from a government perspective, give an indication that the sorts of ideas that Alan's talked about in terms of a northbound avenue, but not on the same height scale, is something that the government supports. Again, we'll want to see a little bit more detail from the LDA and exactly how that can occur. But the balance and the level of density in the housing, I think, the proportions need to be a little different from what was in the initial concept plan. I'm very happy to take that forward as the new direction. People would be aware that this year's budget contained a significant financial injection for the duplication community road, so the time is now right for this sort of detailed consideration. I'm aware that ACLA have had a number of discussions, and Peter might be in a position in a moment to give a little bit of detail beyond which I can give in relation to the progress on that. But I think the message I want to send is that we've certainly heard the views of the council and a number of other stakeholders, and I think it's possible to respond in a way that will meet everyone's objectives. But that top-level principle that we are looking for increased density in this area in order to make the public transport system viable and to make that connection to the city viable, that I think is a clear and agreed principle across all of the stakeholders. I might, if I could, Alan, just very quickly just run through a couple of other issues that have been relevant to the council. I can report tonight that the first 4 blocks in Stage 1 of the Gungahlin Business Park sold today. Achieved a sale price at the commercial auction of close to $2 million, and that will mean around 200 private sector jobs just in those first 4, which are much lower density than what will be the eventual outcome for the rest of the business park. Also, I can report that next week Bob McMullen and I will be meeting with Lindsay Tanner, the Federal Finance Minister, around the location or relocation of a Commonwealth Government department, a major Commonwealth Government department, to the Gungahlin Town Centre. Bob and I will be having that meeting with the Finance Minister. I think it's Thursday morning of next week, which is an important breakthrough, I think. Bob was very pleased to be able to secure the meeting and is looking for me to come and present the case for a Commonwealth department. I understand Lindsay Tanner is very interested, so that I think is an important breakthrough on that particular issue. I have circulated, apologies for the somewhat glossy nature of said thing, with an overly large photo of myself, but there's an election in the near future, so I'm sure you'll forgive me on that front. But just a brief summary of the major budget initiatives for Gungahlin, and noting most particularly the achievement of a couple of long-standing community council requests, most particularly around the road access for the Bergman School, to get that one sorted, and then some additional funding for the joint use library in college. So they're 2 particular highlights, and I think it's signalling of a number of important areas of further work, most particularly around the swimming pool. That I know is the subject of an advertisement in this month's Gunsmoke. So one that we need to get the detail and so work done on that, and that's a priority for the government in this next financial year. Might pause on that note and perhaps take any questions.
Thank you. Have we got any questions or comments with regard to, I guess, Flemington Road first? Other issues that Andrew's touched on so far?
Sure.
Look, I just had one quick question.